This is the recipe for my most viral video. It's a very, very simple recipe, and I figured I might as well just tell you what I did, and I will tell you all the lazy moments I had because it's exactly what it was. My ground meat is already cooked. I made all 6 pounds of it last night, so all I'm gonna do is add that at the very end. If you're using noodles like I am, you need your water salted. You don't want your pasta to be gross. These are the noodles that we're gonna be using. I put everything in jars because I'm afraid of mice. And I'm afraid of moths getting in, or ants getting in, or any kind of little insect getting in, because I sometimes forget about things. So rather than have everything in bags, I put everything in jars. So this probably should be boiling. I am an impatient person. The amount of noodles that I have here are not going to feed my family, so I'm going to go ahead and add a second jar. I'll say that this is very likely a poor man's beef stroganoff and not an actual, true, authentic beef stroganoff, but it gets the job done. If you really want the umami flavor that comes from like charring like real pieces of steak and meat, you can just add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Like, it's totally cool. And make sure you salt it. Make sure you're tasting your food as you go. This is still cooking down. I'm going to give it a minute. I usually use a can of cream of mushroom, and I think in the video I used cream of chicken, which had the internet like, why are you doing that? It's like literally because that's what I have on hand. The entire reason why I do the Back to Basics series and the reason why I showcase the recipes that I'm using is because these are real recipes that I use. I'm using things that are in my pantry because we're just trying to stretch our food and be creative and make things that taste good. Not really a big fan of ultra processed foods, but they have their place. So I'm gonna clean this out real quick. Ta-da! Okay, these are 100% completely cooked. I'd say they're a little bit al dente, maybe. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna use this cream of mushroom. I just am always so unsure. It looks like it's not good. So again, because I felt really weird about the way that can looked, and I'm so weird about cans, and there is nothing to really say that that is bad, I'm gonna go ahead and just use the cream of chicken that I have, which is also not expired, so we're good. We're good there. So cream of chicken, you use what you have on hand, man. You have condensed soup of any kind, this is what you're doing. It's just a flavor enhancer, and it's just a way to, like I said, stretch food. So one of the biggest questions that I had, when I was making this recipe on screen, everyone kept asking me, what are you adding to that? Because one of the things you see me do is add a bunch of water, and then to the next thing, I think I added a bunch of milk. And people were really confused by it. So like, what is that? Is it cream? Is it, you know, what is it? And I was just like, it's just milk. But it's actually not a part of the recipe that I use at all. I was just trying it out while I was doing it on screen, and it ended up getting a lot of people talking about it. And the reason why I used it is not for the reasons you might think. It's not because that's my favorite recipe and that's the version I'm making. I had milk that was going to go bad, and I just wanted to see what it would taste like, and it didn't add much value to it, to be honest. So I don't have any clues for a lactose version, for a lactose-free version of this. But this is the reason why I make the food the way I do. It's literally just, let's knock it out and get it done, get it over with, and I gotta feed the kids as soon as possible. So you can see this meat is from the refrigerator, it's cold, but this meal's coming together in like less than 10 minutes, and that's the most important part. The kids have to eat. I have to be the one to feed them. You're my husband, and I wanna make sure it tastes good. I think they enjoy it. They still keep eating it, so that's nice. Now, a lot of other people said, well, that's just Hamburger Helper. I wouldn't know. I've never had Hamburger Helper. I may have had it once in my life. I'm not sure, because Hamburger Helper costs money, and we didn't buy processed foods like that as a kid. We bought this. We bought noodles. We always made sure we had egg noodles. We always had ground meat. My grandmother knew how to season everything well, so did my mother, and that's the number one thing here. As far as seasoning is concerned, I use the same basic seasoning for everything. It's garlic, pepper, salt, and then if I have onion powder or onion flakes, then that's what I use. That's it. Very simple. Nothing is complicated here, guys. Add a little bit more water to this just because, but not even a lot of pepper, because my kids don't like flavor. They just don't. So these need to dehydrate. They need to rehydrate, these onions, and I don't want this to burn, so I'm going to lower my flame. I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes, and the spoon is very hot. So it's sitting against the stove, or I'm sitting against the pan. So I want to make sure these noodles are 100% cooked all the way through, and that's it. This is literally the viral video. It was just ground meat and noodles and a can of cream of chicken soup because that's what I had on hand. Everything I did in the video was because that's what I had on hand. None of it's rocket science, but it's very good. Give it a minute and we're done. That's it. Oh, should I do it again? Ta-da! So one thing I want to say, just as I'm kind of like pulling the last parts of this meal together, is you can make your own gravy. All you would need is a little bit of oil or butter, a little bit of flour, cook that down and add whatever milk component you want to add, or you could choose to add just a little bit of butter to these noodles, and it would have a very similar effect. Just make sure you season really well. But for all intents and purposes, this meal is done. It's super fast. And it's a good meal. And it sticks to the ribs and it fills the bellies and everyone is comfortable after they eat it and overfilled. And you might be hungry like an hour and a half later, but by then the kids will be asleep, so who cares?